welcome to episode 28 of Scar Bearers. I'm Gordon. It is splendid to have you here with me today. I know what you're thinking. Chris, where can I get that awesome theme music for my own self? Well, you contact my friend Nate Barron at NATEBERAN and he will hook you up. Well, I looked. I don't have any new, funny, weird, or interesting reviews to read on the program here. So instead, I'm going to talk about Linktree. Now, I am not paid to sponsor, as a sponsor for them or anything yet. Wink, wink. But I am using them now to consolidate all my different links. It makes it so much easier just to give one link instead of rattling off 5 or 6, like I will do at the end of this episode. A little peek behind the curtain. I recorded the interview and the outro at the same time this time around. So if you still want to go to all those websites, you can. But if you just go to linktr.ee/chrisdtgordon, that will save you a lot of time. My new friend today, Deborah Ann Davis, will talk about her car accident when she was a teenager and her struggles with recovery and how they propelled her towards 2 different career paths. Okay, today's sponsor is not a sponsor. It is, how should I put this? What is a tribute, Alex? Alex Trebek, the famed Jeopardy host, has passed away at the age of 80 after a long battle with cancer. And as an aside, as a longtime Saturday Night Live fan, I find it a little whimsical. Maybe I got a little chuckle at the fact that Sean Connery passed away before he did. So he got his little revenge, if you will. But anyway, I really appreciate Alex for making trivia, if not cool, at least incredibly classy. So thank you, Alex. All right. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Deborah.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Scar Bearers. I'm Chris Gordon. It's so great to have you here today. I'm joined by my new friend, Deborah Davis. How are you, Deborah?
I'm so good, it's scary.
Well, I hope it doesn't get that far, but I know that every day is an adventure now, but I'm glad you're doing well. And I like that we have a strong connection as being both educators. I am a current educator and you are a former educator.
Yes.
But we came upon it in a different way. While I was an educator before my life-changing experience, you became an educator because of it. Would you mind telling me a little bit about that?
Yes, no, not at all. I was a college kid, and I went to the University of Massachusetts. I was in my 4th or 5th major at the time because I'm a country girl, and I ended up going from a little bitty town to my campus and going, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff. So I kept changing my major. But the one thing I knew I absolutely positively didn't want to do is I knew I didn't want to teach. And that was because my dad was a teacher and it just totally seemed to lack imagination. So that was as I jumped from major to major, it was never about teaching. But even though I was not interested in science, somehow I always ended up taking all these science classes. And I ended up thinking that all these things were connected after my car accident. So can I tell you about the car accident?
Oh, please do if you're comfortable.
Oh, sure. I tell it like a story because I really don't remember it.
Okay.
And I have what they call selective amnesia, which is fine by me. I don't need to know it happened exactly.
Yeah.
But my college boyfriend and I were driving back from a family visit in Boston, and we were on a back road, and we were the only car out there except for this one other vehicle driven by a drunk driver who was so drunk he was driving in the grass on the passenger's side. He wasn't even on the right side of the road.
Oh, wow.
So we're the only 2 cars out there, and he comes right back up on the road in time to hit us. So I've always counted that as this weird lucky day for me, because all these things happened that you wouldn't expect to happen. See, for you younger viewers, this was before cell phones. This was in the age of pagers, but most people didn't have them yet. Mm-hmm. And so we were out here in the country in this smashed up car. The very next car over the hill had an EMT in it, an emergency medical technician. I know. So they sent their car on to go get help, and some lady climbed in the back seat of our car, which I didn't know this was going on, okay? Mm-hmm. Because once I woke up, I didn't understand what the situation was like. I was in shock. I couldn't see. I had tunnel vision. So I couldn't see the fact that my legs were broken, and I couldn't see or feel the fact that my thumb was broken, my nose was broken, and I was cut and bleeding. All I knew is that I thought I was on my knees under the dashboard and leaning, ouch.
You don't have to reenact the whole thing, you know.
I'm not accident prone. I'm leaning on the seat, which was uncomfortable. So I kept trying to put my hands on the seat so I could hoist myself up on it. And this weird voice kept saying, "It's okay. Everything is okay." And they were trying not to get me to move because they thought maybe there was damage to my back, right? So I'm sitting there going, gosh, that is so annoying. And finally I said to the voice, "Could you stop talking like that?" I mean, it was really irritating me. So I thought it was nighttime and it was afternoon. I thought it was raining inside the car, and shock does weird things to you because it never occurred to me to wonder, why would it be raining inside of the car? Why is this voice above me? And I didn't wonder about anything. Mm-hmm. I was just annoyed by the voice and wanting to get up on my seat. So eventually an ambulance came, and they got me out of the car first. The guy who hit us, the drunk guy, he had a little scratch up here that didn't need stitches.
Oh, jeez.
The boy who was driving our vehicle, he shattered his thigh.
Oof.
So, and then it turns out he had strep throat. I don't know how they knew that, but they wouldn't operate on him for 2 weeks until they got rid of the strep throat. So he was in very bad shape for a while. So the reason why I'm saying that this was a fortunate situation was because I didn't have direction before that. I was just in college, la-di-da-di-da. And when I finally got well enough, because I was in the hospital for a while, I was in intensive care for about a week and all this other stuff. And I lost 50 pounds, which is great because you know how they have that freshman 10 spread or whatever?
Yeah.
I was a little bit bigger than that. And I had the unlimited meal plan.
Oh,
and I would eat at the same time the football players ate, and they would say, "How can such a little thing like you eat all that food?" And I'd say, "Oh, well, watch this." And I was just like, I was eating like crazy. And so I was getting real big, and I lost 50 pounds in like 3 weeks from the car accident. So, who knew? So that was a good thing. And then I was in a hospital, and they moved me when I was strong enough to sit up in a wheelchair. They moved me to the infirmary at my college. As I'm playing through my head what I'm going to tell you, I'm thinking, this isn't even going to sound real. This is going to sound like a bad sitcom. But the ambulance brought me to the school infirmary, and it was a madhouse. And there were kids all over the place, bandaged up on gurneys and wheelchairs, on crutches. And there had been a car accident with a school bus.
Oh. They
were all being admitted at the same time. So I'm sitting there, against the wall where they stuck me with my wheelchair, my files in my lap. And they went to go see if they could help some other people, the ambulance drivers. And there's some boys, I don't know, 14, 15-year-old boys in front of me. And one of them had his face covered with a bloody bandage over his eye. And he kept pushing on it. And I was like, oh, and then he finally pushed it off and it fell. And he leans over and he picks it up and he plops it back on. And I'm staring at him. And he looks at the kid next to him and says, man, you got a wheelchair? That's so cool. And the kid goes, yeah, watch me. And he pops a wheelie, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't real. None of it was real.
Oh, wow.
It was a drill, an emergency drill for preparedness for the infirmary.
Oh, no.
So once they realized that none of these kids are actually injured, then they had to go through the triage and everything just as if they were handling multiple injuries, right? So they went through and they worked with everybody, they cleared them all out, and I'm still sitting there hours later, and a nurse comes up to me and says, wait, are you a patient? I said, yeah, here's my file.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was weird. So they admitted me there, and I was put into a room that had 6 beds. So there was no privacy. And so I had cast on each leg. I had huge bandage across my head, and I was skin and bones. I was emaciated looking. I wasn't even 100 pounds. I know this because my friends helped me get on the scale with my cast. And my casts were about 15 pounds, and I didn't even register 100 pounds on the scale.
Oh, wow.
So I was really tiny and injured and weak. And the first morning that I woke up there was a girl sitting next to my bed, and who I did not know. And she said, when I opened my eyes, do you think I'm crazy? And I was like, I don't even know who you are. And it turns out that with the 6 beds that were in the room, I was the only person in there with an injury. Everybody else was in there for some kind of emotional or mental or stressful related situation.
Oh, wow.
Some of it was suicide attempts. Some of it was they'd had a meltdown. I mean, I was the only person with a physical injury, which is a very telling thing about the stress that children go through when they're in college.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up being in the hospital for a while. And a couple of things I will say is that it was about almost 3 months I was in the hospital. So in the beginning, the whole time I was in the car accident, and when I went from there to intensive care, they kept me doped up the whole time. I had no pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very lucky. I had no pain. But the weird thing was, while I was in intensive care, I kept trying to tell them that something was wrong with my foot. And they weren't paying attention to me because I was all doped up and I had a cast on each leg. So they just thought I was confused. But finally somebody said, well, let me look. You know, they were patronizing me, but they looked and they saw that my leg had swollen up and that they like immediately cut off the foot part of the cast because it was like cutting into my foot. So that made me feel a little doubt for them, okay? And they also did not recognize the fact that I had broken my thumb. I kept saying there's something wrong with my hand. The infirmary at UMass are the ones who told me I had broken my thumb. And they also told me I had broken my nose because the other place didn't catch it.
So the place that had 6 beds that wasn't specially designed to handle people with physical injuries had diagnosed more injuries for you than the actual hospital.
That's right.
Wow.
But this is what happened that was such the life-changing incident. I had to tell you all those 3 things because so you'd understand what I'm about to tell you.
Yep.
So my leg kept shifting, probably because I lost so much weight. So they end up putting me under to reset one of my legs. Oh, like on the 3rd time, it was actually my fault. But I'll tell you that later. But so to start, I wasn't healing quickly because of it this leg shifted. Like it was even on 2 planes, but it shifted on the 3rd plane, right? Okay. So I got strong enough to sit up in my wheelchair and to wheel it around by myself. So I would go sit in the stairwell just so I could be by myself. So I hold on to the 2 doors and I fling them open like that, which would shoot my wheelchair into the stairwell. And I would just stay there until somebody came through and opened the doors for me again to help me get back out, just so I could be by myself, right? And then one day I was sitting there in the stairwell over the overlooking the stairs that went down. And I don't know what I did, but I tilted forward. And the wheelchair has a small wheel in the front right above where the flat thing is where you put your foot.
Yep.
I was balanced right on that. And I was just like hanging over the stairs, wondering if I was going to fall tumbling down with my 2 casts in the wheelchair or whatever. And I have no idea how long I stayed there till somebody came up and flattened out my chair and got me through the doors. But I never did that again. So I never had that outlet for being by myself anymore. Mm-hmm. So it was a little stressful when they said to me, well, you're going to go down to physical therapy and we're going to teach you how to stand and walk and all that stuff again. We're going to get you crutches. I was thinking, yeah. So I get down there and my body had atrophied so much, it didn't know what to do. Mm. So they put the wheelchair up in front of 2 parallel bars and I was holding on to them and they said, okay, just stand up. So I didn't know enough about the body to understand the fact that my toes were wiggling meant that I was okay. But in my mind, I'm thinking, they missed my foot swelling. They missed my broken thumb. They missed my broken nose. I think they missed something else and I'm going to be paralyzed for the rest of my life. And being 19, I didn't tell anybody that. So when they wheeled me back to my room, I was sitting there thinking, do I want to spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair? I mean, it was the 70s, but I knew there were plenty of people who had good lives in a wheelchair and were productive members of society, but I didn't want it. And I said, nope. And so I started plotting my demise. I did not want to live that way. So the second day I went back and it didn't work. And the third day I went back to physical therapy and there was a football player sitting in an ice bath watching because I was the only entertainment in there. And they were trying to get me to stand and I was just going through the motions because I already knew I wasn't going to be able to. And he said, why don't you stand her up and let her sit down? Maybe her body can remember it backwards. So they said, oh, okay. And the next thing I knew, they had hoisted me onto my feet. And oh my gosh, my entire world changed. Mm. When they say the sun gets brighter and the grass gets greener and the sky gets bluer, it really does.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was incredible. I was like, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair. I'm going to be able to walk. I'm going to be able to be normal. And I worked so hard to get strong so I could get on the crutches. And the first thing I did when I got strong enough to be on the crutches was I went out the door. When I got out there was some stairs that went up because it was in like the basement level.
Yep.
And there was somebody on the stairs who was slower than me. I knew how to do stairs. They had taught me how to do stairs, right? Mm-hmm. So I went on the outside of the stairs in the dirt. I put both of my crutches under one arm and I held onto the banister and the crutches and I started hopping up the dirt and my foot slid and I went bam right on one of my casts.
Oh.
And I knew it didn't hurt, but I knew that leg that kept shifting, I had done it. So I just turned around, went back inside the hospital and I didn't say anything to anybody. And then the next time the doctor x-rayed me, he comes into my room and he's mad and yelling. And he said, what's going on here? And he grabs my cast and goes, why is there dirt on the bottom of this? And he yells for the nurse to get the gurney. And she comes running in and she's all anxious. And so I'm all anxious. And he goes, get on the gurney. He wouldn't even help me. He was like, get on the gurney. So we get on the gurney and we're going down the room to reset my cast and I'm all wide-eyed and scared and everything, and we get in the room and he starts pulling out this saw to take off the cast, which if you've ever had a cast removed, the saw does not hurt your skin.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I had ever seen it. So he pulls out this cast saw. It's like, you know, and I'm like, well, aren't you gonna put me under? He goes, what do you want, a bullet to bite on? And he saws off the cast and he sets my leg right there and then. And after that moment, I gotta tell you, I was the model patient. I was so well behaved. Oh, I was perfect. But I have to tell you, if you can picture like the middle of your leg moving, that was, it was setting it. It didn't hurt.
Okay.
It did not hurt. But for that, the middle, it was my tibia, my calf. He moved it, and then he set it with plaster. It was plaster cast back then. Mm-hmm. It was so weird. It was, gross.
Yeah.
But never had to set it again. And then I started to take classes. I tried to resume my classes. I got strong enough to take some classes. So I kept 3 of my classes.
Okay.
A physics class, a physiology class, and a chemistry class. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who was taking that combination. And on the same week, all 3 of them taught the same thing. They all taught about neurons and yep. nervous impulses and stuff. So the physics was doing the electrical component of it, and the physiology was doing the fundamentals of the body parts, the neurons itself. Mm-hmm. And the chemistry was doing the chemicals that had to be there in order for the impulse to jump from one neuron to the next one. And so I said to all the teachers, did you plan this? They had no idea. None of them knew what the other one was doing.
That's crazy.
I had the epiphany about, wow, everything is connected. I went to the physics teacher, who was this dynamic, Professor Brem, who's this dynamic, interesting physics person, did all these great demonstrations that were so interesting. People would show up to his lecture more than once just so they could see him do it again.
Oh, really?
And I said to him, I'm thinking about being a teacher. Would you mind if I use some of your ideas? He said, no, go for it. And then all of a sudden, I was on a path to become a teacher.
That's, it's funny where people get their inspirations. And, it is true that all teachers are thieves, but it's all for the good of the students.
That's right. The motto, right?
Yes.
It's better to ask forgiveness than permission.
Exactly. So you get this spark to teach. And so what is next for you then?
Well, I knew that I didn't want to teach in New England because I was from New England, and I knew if I started there, I wouldn't end up going anywhere. So I got my first job teaching in Georgia, in Atlanta. And so I was a Connecticut Yankee down south, and I didn't know about the Southern culture. And they certainly didn't know about me. And I didn't know anything about Georgia. I didn't even know part of it was on the coastline. I mean, I literally knew nothing. I just showed up in a town. I was hired by somebody who did real hard sell, which I don't understand because all I had under my belt was student teaching. So you do a hard sell, I would think, to somebody who is experienced. But yeah. I wanted certain things. I had just spent some time trying to become bilingual in Spanish, and I wanted to be able to use my Spanish. He goes, oh, well, we have a huge Spanish population in this area. And then I said, well, I don't have a car. And he said, well, we just put in this new public transportation. It's brand new. It's wonderful. You'll be fine. So I went down there expecting to, and I said, and I've just been studying urban education. So I'm looking for an urban situation. Mm-hmm. I had done my student teaching in Boston. He said, oh yeah, no, we've got, we're right outside Atlanta and blah, 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 blah. So I go down there. I ride with another teacher that he hired. We were both totally wet behind the ears. Mm-hmm. And I looked like I was too young to drive. And I know this because I got pulled over the first week of school because a cop thought I was joyriding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was down in Georgia. Yep. First day of school, it was early in the morning. I passed the Mack truck on the highway and the cop in front of him, which I didn't see. They used one of those spotlight things on me and pulled me over. And I was like, I'm sorry. I know I was speeding, but I just didn't want to be late for school. I'm so anxious about the first day. And he looks at my license and he goes, where are you going? I told him Cedar Grove High School in Ellenwood. He goes, you're too old to be a student. I said, I know that. I'm the teacher. He goes, oh, okay, go ahead. And, don't speed. and I had to get to school and calm down from that. That was my first day of school.
Well, that means every other day was gonna be calm, right?
Yeah, after that it was easy. Nobody stopped me. So when I got down there, they gave me a school in a part of Atlanta, which back then was more affluent. And when I drove by all the mansions to go see the school, I was like, whoa, I don't know what to do with these kids. I didn't understand, because everyone's saying, oh, the Southern kids are different than the Northern kids, blah, 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 which is not true. A kid's a kid. Mm-hmm. So I went back to their office and I said, could I have something that's a little bit more balanced? And they said, well, you want balance? So they gave me something in the southern part of Atlanta, and the school was predominantly Black. They had like maybe 10 white kids in the school. And it was an interesting situation compared to what I had been through up north. Up north, if you have predominantly Black or Latino or whatever neighborhoods, they usually are not as affluent. There are a lot of poor people in there, a lot of crowded housing. But down there, this community was 2 parents married with college educations, owned their own home, the whole school. So it's done completely different down there in the South than it is up here. So, wow. And then the other thing that was very odd was that everybody I ran into down there was either Black or blonde. And my hair is graying now, but I used to have really dark hair. And I was darkly tanned because I was a sun bunny. And it seemed like every week somebody was asking me what my race was. That's not what they would say. They'd say, so what are you? Sometimes they'd say, are you white or Black or Italian? I'm like, well, I didn't know those were the 3 choices.
A, B, or C. That's all you got.
It was just an odd situation. But the interesting thing about being a science teacher, I got to use all my experiences from my car accident to describe things when I was teaching about the body with the kids.
So, okay, I want you to, go through an abbreviated lesson plan, or, run an example by me, because I'm really interested to see how the kids would react to this, you being the example.
What immediately popped into my mind was when I was trying to teach them about characteristics of objects versus characteristics of substances, like the characteristics of the metal chair as a chair versus the characteristics of the metal, right?
Yep.
So, all right, please remember I'm in the South in the early 80s.
Yep.
Okay, so, all right. So what I had them do was I had them brainstorm different racial groups, and then they put them in little groups, and they each were assigned a racial group that they had made a list of. They all got one, and they were to brainstorm characteristics of that group versus, because we're talking about characteristics of the substance versus the thing it's part of. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then we posted all these things up around the room, and I had them cross off anything that was a characteristic in somebody else's list until everything was crossed off. Mm-hmm. And then I had them line up by hair color and say, okay, point to the place where this side's Black and that side's white, which they couldn't. I happened to be blessed with a couple of redheaded Black kids and some brunette white kids, so it skewed everything.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, we'll line up by eye color. Now point to the place where this is white and that's Black, which again, they couldn't. So the whole thing I was saying to them is that these are emotional constraints, they are political constraints, but they aren't real constraints, because there really is biologically only one group.
Yeah.
The human race. To which my children replied, well, which one are you? Like, didn't you hear anything I said? Didn't you understand anything that we just did? So they wanted to know, was I Black or was I white? So the white kids wanted to know, is that my phone?
It's not I don't think it's mine. So
Yep, it is. I'm sorry. Can I go shut that off?
you go ahead, do what you need to do.
All right, hang on.
So while we're waiting, I'm looking at her bookshelf. She has a couple books. One's called How to Keep Your Daughter from Slamming the Door. I think I need to read that book. And my
I will
daughter's
send you a
8.
copy.
Yes.
I am so sorry about that. That's the first time that's happened.
No
we don't even
worries.
use that line.
No problem.
So, the white kids wanted to know what color I was, and they would say, "Aren't you afraid someone's going to think you're something you're not?" The black kids would say, "Why aren't you telling us what you are? Aren't you proud of what you are?" Because the black kids thought I was black and the white kids thought I was white. Mm-hmm. So I told them every time, I would say, "When you graduate high school, I will tell you what I am." Mm. So one year I ended up with kids that I'd had the previous year, but now I had them in a different science. Okay. And they got really aggressive about, "We want to know. We've been here for 2 years with you. We want to know." So finally I said, "Okay, I'm white." And they all went, "Ah." And I said, "I'm just kidding. I'm black." And they went, "Ah." I said, "I'm just kidding. I'm white." And they went, "Ah." I said, "I'm just kidding." They said, "Stop it." I said, "Look, when I told you what color I was, you immediately pictured my music, my friends, my family, my life. And then when I switched it over, you created another entire picture. But the reality is I didn't change. I'm still me. So it doesn't matter what I am." So you wanted to know a quick lesson plan? That wasn't quick, but that's what I did.
No. That was quite interesting. And, I have to say, I wasn't expecting that kind of lesson, but, that's the beauty of having conversations. You don't know where the conversation is going to take you.
No, you never know.
So how long were you at that school?
5 years.
Okay.
5 years. And I ended up moving back to Connecticut because I wanted to get to know my family again.
Okay.
So I moved into Connecticut and I started teaching in Hartford.
All right. And I'm guessing a little different than what you were teaching at, right?
That's what everybody wants to say. But, I was teaching at Weaver High School, which has merit scholars. It has kids who win national art prizes. They have kids who win writing scholarships and just anything, any prize that you would see in any other school, you would see them getting there at Weaver. Mm-hmm. But Weaver always got bad press because it was an inner city school and it's not interesting to talk about the kids' achievements. It was only interesting to talk about their problems. So, and it was a huge school. It was like the size of a football field. It was so big that if I was on one end of the hallway and I saw a kid fooling around at the other end of the hallway, I couldn't tell who it was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was that big.
How many students were there on average?
I don't know. I honestly don't know, but it had 5 floors.
That's a big school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like most of the top floor was the library, but
okay.
Yeah. And it was a wonderful place to teach. The kids were wonderful. The teachers were wonderful. And yeah, when you have a larger population, you have more kids who have problems, but it's like this, it's a close percentage to other schools. They may have other problems in other schools. And I've taught in a wide variety. I've taught in New Canaan High School, which is like on the Gold Coast. That school is so rich. They have their own astronomy, what do you call it?
Oh, I'm blanking on it too. I can picture it. Big dome with
yes, they have their own in the high school.
Their own thing. Observatory.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. They have their own.
Wow.
I know. So I taught there and there were a percentage of kids who had trouble there. But basically wherever you are, if the kids have all these things in common. They want to be accepted. They want to be admired. They want to be valued. They want the teacher to like them and appreciate them. And they want to find the class interesting. Now, some of them have had that emotionally beat out of them over the years of not having success. But basically, they all want the same thing. And if you can figure out who they are, my superpower was being able to figure out who they were. Mm-hmm. And so when you can do that, and the kids come in, and you check them out real fast, and who walked through your door that day, could be a totally different person who walked through your door the day before, as as a teacher.
Yeah. So
you have to quickly see who's on board and who's not on board, who's having some personal struggle, who's having a great day, and you have to figure out how you're going to take this generic lesson plan that you've made and instantly go zip, 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 so it applies to all these different kids. Mm-hmm. But I taught science, so, it was really great.
Yeah, already you have the interesting subject. You just could put a little spin on it so everyone gets something out of it.
And experiments, and projects, and walks outside to look at nature. Yeah, it was great.
So I'm looking behind you, Deborah, and as I said before, you have How to Keep Your Daughter from Slamming the Door. You have Fairly Safe, and you have other books. And I'm thinking, okay, I know teachers are pretty busy, but you must have a crazy life if you've been teaching and writing all those books.
Well, no, that's not how it works. Yep. If you're teaching, that's the only thing you can do. Mm-hmm. I started writing because I got sick. I had to stop teaching. I got Lyme disease. And that hit my heart. So my heart rate was down to 37 beats a minute, and it hit my brain. So I couldn't watch a half-hour sitcom because I couldn't follow the plot.
Oh, wow.
I had some serious brain fog. So when I started getting better, which as a biology teacher, I knew that you boost your immune system with movement. Mm-hmm. So I started going to the gym, and I would get on the treadmill at the lowest speed. I'd walk for about 30 seconds, and I would sit down and rest, and I would get up and walk about 30 seconds and sit down and rest, and trying to help bring myself along, because I was on antibiotics basically from June to September, which is a really long time. And then it took a long time to get better. That's all I'm going to say. So as I started to get better, I was listening to songs because I couldn't watch TV, and I would get creative with the song in my head, and I would start jotting down these ideas. And then as I got much stronger, I started to write a little bit. So I started writing this book, Fairly Safe, and I had half a school year before the school year ended, because they'd gotten a permanent sub for me because I couldn't predict when I would be able to go back. Then I went to my first Renaissance fair, and I stood in the middle of that place, and I went, oh my gosh, if an alien landed here, they would think this is how we really live.
Yeah.
So I ended up writing this book, Fairly Certain, which is a story about a computer geek who falls out of a tree, and when he wakes up, he thinks he's back in Robin Hood times.
Oh, wow, that's funny.
And then I got that one out, and then I went back and I finished this one, the Fairly Safe one. Mm-hmm. But I could only write during the summers. Mm-hmm. You can't do anything else when you're teaching.
Yeah,
if you got a family.
Yeah. So I'm noticing that the Fairly Safe and Fairly Certain, for my listeners, they have people that are displayed in silhouette form, and they're using a similar color scheme. Am I picking up a series or just?
They are a standalone series.
Okay. All right.
So it's the plot in here has a character that's in here, but they are totally different plots, and everybody else is different.
Okay. All right. So it's kind of like a little like crossover events, but they're not intertwined.
Yes, and they're humorous suspense, and they both have a surprise ending because I like surprise endings.
That's what that's what M. Night Shyamalan has given us, the twists, and so. But it looks like maybe you were doing that before he was.
Yep.
So.
And then I wrote this book because I miss teaching so much, and this gave me a way to help moms and their kids connect, even though I wasn't in the classroom anymore.
Yep,
and for the listeners, this is how to keep your daughter from slamming the door. And then for everybody who's listening, if you go to my website, which is deborahanndavis.com, you can get another book for free, which is called How to Get Your Happy On. And I'm making it free because of this time. Everybody needs every little bit they can get.
And that is greatly appreciated. What can you give us a little snippet as to what would be offered in that book, Deborah?
It's a nice short book, and it's based on science because I'm a science geek. And at the end of it, there is a little experiment on how music and media affect your mood. And you can do that with your whole family. So if you've got kids, you can do that experiment with your whole family. But meanwhile, there's all these ways in there about getting your happy on, and they are really so easy because it isn't about having external things make you happy. It's about making yourself happy inside. And I can give you one quick one right here, right now, that nobody ever believes, but this is so true.
Oh, please do.
The thing is, if you are smiling, your body produces happy hormones. Mm-hmm. They're in your gut, they're in your brain, both places, okay? It turns out that your body can't tell the difference if you fake smile. So if you just sit there and go, big grin, nothing behind it emotionally, your body will still produce those happy hormone chemicals.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. So it's a great way to interrupt an argument with your kid. But I will say this. You have to tell them ahead of time before you're even arguing, because if you grin at your kid in the middle of a fight, they're going to get scared.
or get even more upset because they think you're laughing at them.
That's right.
And
so just tell them ahead of time, I'm going to try this experiment next time we have an argument.
Okay. All right. And then, for people who don't know you, it just makes you that much more interesting. Like, what is that person smiling about?
That's right.
I'm just making myself healthier.
That's right.
So,
another quick way to make yourself happy is volunteering or doing something for someone else. If you even smile at somebody across the street, hold a door for somebody, all those things contribute to your inner happiness. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I like to call it the attitude of gratitude.
Yes, love that. Yes.
All right. And so for this free book, How to Get Your Happy On, people just go to your website, deborahanndavis.com.
Yes, and you'll find it in the middle of the home page.
Okay. All right. Well, besides offering free books to my listeners, what else are you up to these days?
Well, I'm promoting the How to Keep Your Daughter from Slamming the Door book. That one just came out. Okay. And in October, I'm opening up my coaching practice for new clients again. I do this once a year to let things die down and then restart again. Mm-hmm. See, coaching is different than doing therapy because coaching is about isolating the things that you want to change, creating a goal for it, and then the criteria for achieving that goal, and then working through those criteria until you reach the goal. Mm-hmm. So in October, I'll be opening up my practice again, and you can find information about that on my website.
Excellent. And so besides DeborahAnnDavis.com, where can people find you on the internet?
I'm on basically all of them, but if you go to Facebook, for you moms, I have a mom group, and it's called the Mom Meetup, Raising Confident Girls. And then for everyone else, there's one called Life Advice 101. And you're more than welcome, but I'd also like you to come join with the attitude that you're going to contribute your expertise, because you do have expertise. You may not feel like you have expertise, but you've gone through things that younger parents haven't gone through yet. You've gone through things with your kids that somebody else may not have thought about, and you have life experiences that somebody else can benefit from. So it's supposed to be interactive, so come on board.
All right. So that's on Facebook. That's the Raising Confident Girls.
The Mom Meetup,
Mom
Raising
Meetup.
Confident Girls.
Okay.
And the other one is for everybody else, Life Advice 101.
Life Advice 101. Okay.
And I'm Deborah Ann Davis on the media.
Okay. And then that's at Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Pinterest.
Pinterest, yes.
All right. And then DeborahAnnDavis.com. Well, Deborah, this has been a treasure trove of information and fantastic storytelling. But I do have one more question for you that my audience loves to hear the answer to. What is your favorite dinosaur?
The Brontosaurus, because they're leaf eaters.
Brontosaurus. Excellent. Well, again, Deborah, I greatly appreciate your time and all the information and stories you've given me today. Thank you very much, and please have a great day.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Definitely. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Deborah. If you're interested in getting your hands on her book, How to Get Your Happy On, for free, you can find it at DeborahAnnDavis.com. You can find her other books there as well. If you want to find her on the socials, such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Pinterest, just search for Deborah Ann Davis. And if you go on Facebook, you may be able to join her groups, Mom Meetup, Raising Confident Girls, and Life Advice 101. And if you couldn't get enough of her, don't worry. I'll be setting up a part 2 conversation where she's going to tell more stories. We were talking after I stopped the recording, and she said, oh no, I forgot to mention this and mention that. So she'll mention it sometime soon. If you are interested in to find out what I have going on in the world of speaking, you can find me at chrisdtgordon.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at chrisdtgordon. And then there's always Scar Bearers, where we don't talk about bears with scars, though that is visually awesome. You can find that at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, most of the podcasts. All right. Thanks, as always, for joining me. And one more thing, if you are interested in grabbing some theme music of your own, please look up my friend Nate Barron at Nate Barron. That's the @ Nate Barron, all one word. You know how it works. All right. Thanks a lot for joining me. Please have a great day, and don't forget to pass on perfection and go for greatness.